New tech, big promises, bold claims. But is it hype? Two retail and commerce veterans cut through the noise and tell you what matters. Manny and Joe. Check out.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Manny and Joe's Checkout. This is our second episode of our new show. You may remember us from Mo and Joe's Epic Tech Talks a few years ago. I'm Joe Skarch, your co-host, along here with Manolo Almagra. How are you, Manny?
What's up, man? There's some creepy dude behind you. I don't know if you've realized that.
I am broadcasting live from Columbus, Ohio. And it's Columbus, Ohio is synonymous with the Ohio State University, as you may or may not know.
Of course. Yes.
I think you have some Ohio State connections yourself. I'm here this week helping family with some stuff and doing this broadcast up in the attic, and that's where Brutus hangs out. So I'm here with Brutus. Brutus is in a good mood. The Buckeyes won yesterday.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Yes, they did.
My wife and
for Illinois,
talking about it. Yeah.
Where we both normally live, right? But anyways, I'm here with him, and while Ohio State football is exciting, it is not as exciting as the topics we're going to discuss today. We got a couple of bangers, as they like to say. Okay. There's a new, just as a reminder, I'm a senior advisor for Media Amp, which is a commerce agency specializing in retail media. And there's a new post up from Media Amp that I wanted to cover, not just because it's from Media Amp, but because it's about a very relevant topic and a build on what we talked about last week. And the topic is the idea of the death of the search bar and AI conversational search guiding the way that consumers shop, but also, as importantly, the way that brands optimize their products and their product listings. And so we're going to talk about that, and then Manny's going to lead us on a discussion around all things in-store retail media. And I think you're going to go a little bit deep into in-store measurement, correct?
Yep. I saw an article that was in Grocery Dive that I thought was a great starter for us today. So love those. I love living off of somebody else's research and then cherry picking my facts.
Right? The fact that we can pull so much content and discuss it from Grocery Dive is great for them because
that's true.
We have
we gave them credit.
Our follower base.
Exactly.
Well, there's crossover. Grocery Dive's a great industry magazine. We've been reading it for a long time.
Absolutely.
So let's dive right in. I want to share screen just to give people a reference point for what we're talking about, and then show some live examples of what we're talking about today. And this idea of the search bar being dead is kind of the place I want to start. So let's go ahead and do that. Put us down here, if I can. Oh, look, it wants me to try Gemini and Chrome. Okay, Manny, you see in my screen, right?
I see it. Yep. I see Rupesh's name there too.
That's right, Rupesh. Give a little shout out to Rupesh. He's the author. The search bar is dead. This conversation about conversational AI is important as a follow-up. And it's something that many of you may have a follow-up to our conversation last week around ChatGPT and Etsy, et cetera. It is important to our listeners, many of whom may conceptually understand this, but I think putting a finer point on it is worth a few minutes, and that's why we want to cover it today. The search bar is not dead, but it is dying. With all sort of due respect to my friend Rupesh, it's the platitudes are not true yet, but they may be in time. And the idea is, if you think about where we are with a couple of the world's biggest retailers, let's start with Amazon. They've been rolling out Rufus over the course really of a couple of years now. And we're going to show you an example of that in a minute. But there's also an Open Web Alliance powered by Google. Ask AI leverages a Google platform that is being deployed on many retailer sites, including grocery. And so whether it is Ask AI or Rufus or a different walled garden solution or a different open source solution or a different solution around conversational commerce like ChatGPT, the idea that keywords are out and context is in is increasingly not only relevant, but critical to understand and optimize for. And we're in this difficult place where the consumer behavior has changed or is changing from sort of attribute-based, criteria-based search and filtering to one that is more around natural language. And it's that conversation piece that I think will evolve and continue to change rather quickly. So what that means is, and the reason it's challenging, to get back to the point I was going to make a minute ago, is as a brand, you have to optimize for both right now. And that's not the easiest thing to do. So this team put together a bit of a content checklist, and I think a lot of it is around understanding that you've got to answer consumer questions in regular language. You've got to do it in your product detail pages. You have to do it in your product information sheets. Your imagery and video must be one that answers key customer questions, not just in a technical sort of form, but in this sort of expert and natural language format. Because the idea is really that SEO is the new content architecture, as people are thinking about shifting their focus from just keyword stuffing, if you will, which has been long overplayed, into more content that is seen as authoritative and will be scraped by the AI itself. So
Yeah. I mean, we kind of alluded to that in the last episode, right? Because you're talking about dealing with, like you said, natural language conversation. The open-ended question is a critical piece. We've been trained over the years to look up, as you said, look specific, qualified. I would say it's like, oh, I'm looking for C4 energy drink. That's it. It's like, you don't have, that's not a conversation. It's like, help me figure out the best energy drink for my specific needs, right? That's really where we're going. And I think what you're bringing up is that I don't know if the retailers have the data framework ready for that yet. Some of them have already made the leap. I think there's Kroger, there's Albertsons, like the big guys have started to learn from it. I think Albertsons made a recent announcement, I think in the last couple of weeks, where they launched their chatbot. That's a conversational chatbot on their site. And I think what the article I read said is the customer behavior kind of led them down that path. 85% of the people that were using this bot are using natural language open-ended questions. And so that kind of said, look, we really need to be a little bit more, being experience focused. You have to tailor to those folks. And I think, and I don't think everybody's using it this way yet, right? I think we're, like you said, we're at the precipice. Is it precipice or precipice? I always make this up.
Precipice, and welcome to the English language. Yes, I think I do think that it's not as if the old way of searching is going to go away. I think what it is for that sort of upper funnel, more exploratory search. There's a whole new way and a much better way to find answers. People are still going to search in the old term, right, for Amazon is a lot of spear phishing happens there. And that's historically been true. It's evolved. But somebody's looking for Gatorade, they're going to find and search for the brand. And that's fine. We're not trying to capture that type of search via conversational commerce. It could be that there's comparison between brands that conversational commerce does really, really well. But it's more, I would say, mid to upper funnel. And I want to show you an example on Amazon of how this works. So a great way to do anything, I think, is to search for like value, because value implies two attributes, right? Cost, but also quality. And what is the ratio between cost and quality that you want to achieve? Because many of us overspend, right, based on either assumptions or previous notions of brands. And so one of the things that e-commerce did a long, long time ago was to at least begin to equalize the playing field between the branded and the non-branded, if you will. And that's why we've seen like Amazon private label grow so much. And private label, I think, in general, is brands have lost just a little bit of equity in some of these places. But I did a search for what are the best value noise canceling headphones. And Rufus, again, the Amazon AI, does a great job of pulling back what they call budget champions under $50, premium value under $100, and giving me a nice display of all of those listings. And then there's the cheaper options for under $40. So as you look at this, it's a product search display, right? I mean, in essence, that's what it is. But it's really presenting these options in an organized, non-cluttered way around my very specific query or question, I should say. And then what I've always loved about these chatbots that have come out is they ask intuitive follow-up questions like, do you want to see travel-friendly follow-up options? And then you're getting that example right here in Amazon. Then if you want over-the-ear options, these are all brought to you proactively. And then along with that, they'll start to cross-sell a little bit, of course, because if they know you're traveling, they'll start to sell you accessories. So Rufus did a really good job this morning as we prepared for this. But last week when I did this, it actually showed me some non-headphone options. So this is all still work in progress.
Yeah.
But I think that if this conversational commerce component, Rufus, was given like a proper piece of real estate, it is featured in the top nav, but then it's kind of this pop-up window that sits in this corner oddly. There's a time coming when I think that it demands premium real estate in a way that's more embedded into the experience as opposed to pulled out of the website. So I think that we'll see that as time goes on. But I wanted to give people just a real living example beyond what we shared with ChatGPT last week of this is already living on the world's biggest e-commerce site. So check it out.
So I have a challenge question for you. Is like, what do you think will happen? I mean, today AI is very democratized. It's not ranked by any means or positioning these items based on someone paying me more to make it show up at the top.
Well,
are we going down the road of
yes,
turning AI into that new approach where the more you pay, it's going to show up at the top?
Yeah, that's happening. I mean, the paid placements are already in progress for most of these big platforms, or they're in the works. So it's coming. The extent to which those are tailored to the actual conversation or what's important. I mean, even in paid search, based on queries, search bar queries today, or sort of going through the navigation tree, those are still very contextual and most of the time relevant. So I'm pretty sure that they're going to be able to apply the same sort of logic here. I do think it's actually going to be a little bit more work to do it right for AI.
Yeah.
And a different way of thinking about it, but we're going to see those for sure. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah, I think, it makes me think, I'm a big, how I am about conspiracy theories. I mean, you've known me long enough to say I buy into every single one.
Never met a conspiracy you didn't like. Right?
That's right. But
You're right.
I just think what happens down the road when suddenly, it goes back to we're training these large language models on the internet. And so suddenly, like you said, the reality of it going in and finding something just based on your conversation is no longer going to be just a pure looking and I'd say looking is like researching and then finding the actual best products versus the ones that it's been trained on, because it's writing all the product descriptions. You know what I mean? Like, we're getting to a point now that at some point these LLMs are going to be training themselves on the stuff they've written. And so what does that mean? Is that, that goes to the Sam Altman theory of the dead internet. Like, as we evolve and, these LLMs write themselves and they're writing content, even some of the articles that we're reading today are all AI generated. We are going down a path.
Yeah.
And this is my conspiracy theory. We go down this path of what Rufus is doing here. All the queries that we make, in Gemini are going to be, or maybe they are already. Like, I don't know. I feel like we're going down the path of this is something that the LLM is going to be trained on, and then suddenly it's not as meaningful of a search anymore because it's all based on somebody paying a little bit more to show up in the rank.
Well, and
Which
that's
is
where I
how
think.
they are.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do think that there's an inherent advantage to maybe doing. You get the same thing, right? The walled garden is going to use the data that it has. Plus, I don't know. I actually don't know, and maybe this is something we should have investigated prior to the podcast. But like, does Rufus actually pull in data outside of Amazon's owned data? In other words, is it doing anything on the open web? I don't think so. I just typed in, what about headphones for Manny Almagro? I think I've only known you for 10 years, and I think I spelled your last name.
Yeah, well,
Pretty common last
my
name,
headphones
I'm sure.
showed up in that list, the ones I have. So it must know.
It
you
must have.
know,
Well, that's the thing. Like ChatGPT, you could actually do that, whereas I'm not sure that Rufus actually, it didn't. It just asked me another question. I think it showed you your headphones earlier, but when I got specific as to you, it didn't. See, it just asked me more questions. So, anyways, I digress. But just this is happening. I wanted people to see it. I do want brands who aren't already thinking about it. I know most Fortune 500 brands are, but your Amazon business is going to change a lot. And this is, again, I'll say this one more time before we move on to the next topic because we're getting a little long in the tooth here. But I don't think this is voice search, right? I think I think there's staying power here. I think this is the way people would like to shop. I think we've talked about this in e-commerce for a generation, and now to see it become more useful and accurate is encouraging because it was always a bit unnatural to search by like this weird keyword mechanic, and then have to deal and market with that. So this is where it's happening on Amazon, and we'll keep track of this. There's going to be more coming, and the other one to keep track of, just as a reminder, is Ask AI, which is not which is more open source for different brands to use. So keep a track of Rufus and Ask AI. This is what I meant to say. Ask AI. So
Ask AI.
That's it.
That's what they say. All right. So the next topic is, I think we all read Grocery Drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Who
as
doesn't?
I said earlier,
Yeah.
It's their grocery shop article, like what happened at grocery shop. I didn't get to go. I don't think you went either. I mean, these days, especially with the shutdown, I mean, no one wants to travel. I mean, I've seen the delays that are happening, and I feel for the people that are being impacted by the shutdown, but it's not a great time to travel. So anyway, I digress. I think this article I'm going to bring up. Hold on one second. Let me find my little tab. So many tabs. So many tabs.
So many tabs and so many screens behind you.
Yes. Well, this is my wide shot. You can see my man cave. So this article basically talks about how while Amazon's scale leaves little room for competition when it relates to the digital side, in-store media, and this is a topic near and dear to my heart because I do a lot of measurement and instrumentation for in-store, which is totally different and very challenging, especially when to prove attribution, closes of attribution. But this article kind of helps, I'd say, validate some of the things I've been thinking about. Is from the position I sit in at Publicis Sapient, when I look at this, we talk about things like the future of retail isn't necessarily going to be online; it's in store, and that's that continues to be the case. I always laughed at those comments where people's like, the store is dead, the store is dead. That was maybe 5-6 years ago, right? Now it's like the number one destination.
The retail apocalypse.
Exactly. Remember all those terms? And so now, we're jumping back to reality. This article in here that cited says 75% of retail media ad spend through 2027 basically is saying, it's basically shifting, right? In-store is critical. A lot of the big retailers like Albertsons, Kroger's, Walmart, they've already started expanding their in-store. But the big challenge is the fact that, with digital, it's very easy to prove closed-loop attribution or multi-touch. When you think about the physical space, that's a whole nother level of how am I going to figure that out, right? There's a lot of proxies we use. I focus in an area called spatial analytics where we try to use privacy compliant technologies, starting from loss prevention cameras all the way down to sensor-based technology, right? There's a whole gamut of technology that you can use. Some are more accurate, but they also have privacy implications, which a lot of retailers have been starting to be very open about. Because I think the big story here is the brands that are advertising on the in-store are now kind of leaning into, I need more proof that my ad was shown, or there's reasonable performance that I should continue to invest in this specific in-store channel, right? And so while we know that it's a lot of foot traffic and everyone comes to the store, being able to show that a person came in and spent time in an area where a screen was, and then tying that back to the transaction without having to get into, matching up the person in the loyalty program or anything. There's a lot of privacy challenges. What this talks about is a lot of ways that are now starting to be tested, right? So I think we're moving into a realm of technology and testing that is going to push the privacy envelope, right? So I'll use this example. If you shop at Walmart, I'm going to flip my sharing real quick. Let's see, stop sharing. Go find yourself the customer privacy page, right? And I think you should do this for all of your grocery stores that you go into. I don't think it's a hidden thing. They're being straightforward. It's on their corporate page, but you really have to show and tell your customers what's going on, right? So I just did a real quick scan for the word camera, which is when I talked about earlier, loss prevention cameras being used. This basically says this is how I'm capturing your data in my stores using various technologies, various sensing, and this is how I'm going to use it. It's already in here. You just don't know it. I think
You should
customers
probably look at that for all of your
yeah, that's what I'm
retail
saying.
partners.
I mean, I don't think it's bad. I mean, if you think about, there's no privacy expectation when you have surveillance cameras protecting you from theft. Like that's just the big thing. But the key here is making it more mainstream for people to think that we're not really trying to creep on you. We're trying to figure out how to make your shopping experience better and get you more relevant messages, advertising, marketing, things like that. But anyway, I think what was telling is if you do this, just go into the corporate page about privacy and how they collect personal information for any one of the brands you shop on and dig a little deeper and see. I guarantee you there's some kind of camera or loss prevention, especially if they're a large retailer. So
Right. Yes.
it's not a bad thing. It's just saying, I think we're looking at the beginning of precipice. Did I use that right, Joe?
Precipice.
Did I?
Precipice. Yes. Close
Of
enough.
of a day when it's, a level of analytics in the store, whether it's sensor based or cameras, they're going to give kind of a better picture of what's happening in stores. So we're going to get to the level of analytics that we get with digital, right? We're already there. We just now have to unpack it and start using it to the point of it's now time for a unified measure, right? That's what
Unified.
I'm saying. Unified.
What about, is that the same as spatial intelligence?
No, spatial intelligence is a little bit different. So if you
Okay.
think about, well, in my world,
Tell
for
us
me,
more.
spatial intelligence is about you can reason with the data that's there. It's like perfect example is Gemini just started to creep into my Google Home app. I don't know if you saw the article. I mean, I let them test beta stuff on me, but you can now reason with your house security system. It's the same thing. Like I can say what happened on the cameras last night. You can do the same thing with spatial data and say what's going on in my store. Like that's the key is we're now linking our LLMs and querying or reasoning with data that's in there so that just like with your example of shopping, this is conversational reasoning way of looking at, you're not looking at dashboards anymore. I should just say it that way. Just make it simple. We're not looking at dashboards anymore. We're talking to the data and asking a question specifically so that I can make educated decisions. Right?
Yes,
That's
Google
really it.
Google Home is on its way to being a humanoid, and I'm pretty
Oh, I
clear
think
on
so.
that.
I
Yeah.
mean, if we follow your buddy Elon,
I, what I would like to do is harken back to Star Trek 4.
Okay.
We've done in the past when they pick up the mouse and start talking to it, or Scotty does, computer. The interesting thing about that, and the reason that'll never not be hilarious, is because A, it's hilarious, but B, because the ability to take unstructured, well, let me rephrase that because I'm no data expert and I don't want to use the wrong term. The ability to take different streams of data, integrate them and train that data on an LLM or with an LLM to enable us to talk to our house in a conversational way, or the system that's serving at least the security in our house. Imagine when all of your Google Home, assuming that you've got a number of connected devices in the home, all of those streams of data are connected and are enabled through some form of LLM. You're going to have your own type of, not a retail environment, but a closed home environment that you can simply dialogue with. And it may be, before too long, you can even do that in a store environment. Because one of the things we haven't talked about with regard to store, to bring it back to the retail, is yes, you've got retail media everywhere. There's tons of data and cameras in a store that empower sort of the management of those stores and the enabling of things like retail media. But the consumer, with the exception of some Find My Product stuff, like in the Walmart app and other places where they'll guide you to your product, there's still not a good conversational layer that happens with the store. And where I'm going with this is, well, kind of like we just talked about, but if you think about the first part of this conversation, which was all about conversational query in a digital environment, conversational query supported by advertising in a retail physical environment is something that should be happening fairly soon in a more robust way. In other words, even Walmart, who's the most advanced in this space, at least as far as like the integration of the app, and I think the store probably more so than like the grocery retailers, even though there's some good apps out there for them too. I want to be able to talk to the store and be navigated, guided. Like I shouldn't have to go to the deli counter to get recommendations on the cuts of the day or whatever.
Right.
Where do you see that going? And that could be another place for even non-screen based advertising. That could be a place for voice ads as well.
Yeah, I think that we're with the advent of being more sophisticated, voice has been around for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Voice AI, and it's not been that successful. Mm-hmm. But to me, the combination of feedback, whether it's on your phone or a screen, I think that's what's going to change things. But it also, you have to think about, that's a one-to-one conversation. So in store, it's probably best on your mobile device versus, there used to be the story of, oh, was it Minority Report where the guy would walk in and it would say, oh, Mr. Anderton, welcome back. Like that's just never going to work. That right. Whole one-to-many metaphor is really just, you can't do it. You have to have a personalized one-to-one. So whether it's a drive-through or on your mobile phone, I think the way it's going to happen is you'll be able to talk to these one-to-one types of interfaces, surfaces, and it will just show you what you ask for.
The shopping cart is another good example too. And probably maybe one of the best form factors for grocery could be, we've seen, like, for example, the Instacart shopping cart. I can remember a couple of years ago at NRF hanging out with you and looking at the first version of that they had. Now they're on a subsequent version. Excuse me. But that could be the form factor that works best for larger basket types of retail, grocery being one of them, right? So
totally agree. I think.
Sorry, I took us way off topic, but I just.
No, that was good. We can wrap it up. I think for me, the things that I think the challenges we'll face with this voice commerce piece, as it relates to a GDP type of experience inside, like Rufus and everything else, is really training the models to understand intent and context. That's always going to be the hard piece, right? Just like you and I have been talking about, it's like, help me find something for my friend. It's like, what does that even mean to the AI? That is so ambiguous, but that's the way people talk, right? We have to figure that out. I think also because of the fact that there's several different systems that have to be data ready, inventory, pricing, loyalty, fulfillment. A lot of these are still very siloed inside of a retail enterprise, and that's number two.
Phase two. Phase three.
Figure it out.
Right.
And then just the quality of data, right? That's always going to be the case. If your catalog says, headphones $199 instead of like attributes, like how it feels, all the stuff that you have when you look at it. It's basically going to be the one that has a better data structure in there. The quality is going to be the one that does better with the
and is more authoritative as by way of that. I think also just one thing to add to what you said, and then I'll probably be enough. But it's this idea too that the consumer himself or herself adds to the authority as well by way of things of reviews and things like that add to that sort of authority score. And I think push those brands to the top. So whether you're in a retail environment where maybe some screens are starting to show up, or just want to be more relevant in your advertising, or if you're in a digital environment with like a Rufus like we saw earlier, man, I just think that content is more important than ever. And it's the greatest sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Irony, because so much content being pushed, not just by brands, but by individuals that's out there today is AI generated. So I think that the more we get into like authentic content that answers key questions or serves as validation from other consumers or concern from other consumers, AI is going to be looking for that sort of information. And that's what's going to power some of these results, and I think drive the customer interaction in a more useful but also authentic way. Because all of this conversational commerce we're talking about, or the ads that are in proximity to the consumer in a retail environment, if any of those things are inauthentic or seen as being AI generated themselves, all of this is going to fail to launch in a way that way that it should. Trust. Yes,
customer trust.
Yep.
Got to fix that too.
Got to fix that. So it's like AI to enable, but don't use AI to inform. Like we can't garbage in, garbage out. That old axiom, it still holds. The challenge is, of course, not all AI. I am not suggesting all AI generated content is garbage, but as far as like ranking products, giving the consumer a filtered list of ideas and asking follow-up questions, that needs to be enabled by real consumer feedback and information from the brands that are factual about their brand and their products. And so it's a challenge, but it's one that smart people like you are figuring out, because you're doing things like spatial solar computing and analytics and stuff.
Right.
Anyways, I digress again, but it is interesting. These two worlds are going to come together. The physical, who's catching up in the ad space, and then sort of the conversational, which is poised to be the next realm in digital shopping. What I'm talking about, and I think the thing we'll keep an eye on here, is how those two things combine over time. Because I think that this concept, conversational commerce driven by authentic data, is one that is not just digital in nature, but it's physical as well. So that's for next time, I guess.
That's a good closing. Nice way to wrap that up, Joe.
Tried really hard because I lost where I was going a couple times. No, I'm just kidding.
All right. Well, like we always say, if you like our show, make sure you subscribe. Like it if you like it even better. Like and subscribe. And then also, thanks for listening, and look forward to joining us in the next episode.